All right, all right. Well, this is a little unorthodox from what we normally would do. I'm not playing any music. Uh, welcome, welcome. If you go back and you watch this, welcome. Salakli, forgive me. Um, but welcome to Y'all Conscious. Well, if it's not Y'all Conscious, it is unacceptable. Naknirot sa alatit kabo shabak le Yahweh Elohe Abraham Yitzchak Yaakov. I want to give honor and praise to He that causes to exist, Most High Power of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So we're going to be talking about we're just freestyling today. Freestyling, want to make sure that we um, send our prayers and things like that to Gebet Kathy and
Okay.
Sharot. Sharon. Wow, I flipped it. Did you hear me? I said
Yeah.
Achon Sharot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
what we did say we are gonna freestyle. So
I'm freestyle, right? So, yeah, man. I don't know. I'm just gonna bring out something I had read earlier. I want to bring out something I had read earlier. Don't have a name. And I will kind of just like go through it in a way to where I'm not reading it verbatim. But the post
right.
basically said something along the lines of just giving a heads up to friends and family about no longer doing a birthday, celebrating it because it's not a part of our culture, um, nor is it biblical.
Right.
And had mentioned that Yahweh aka Jesus, never celebrated it. So one of the things that I thought about when I saw that, I was like, wait, it wasn't a part of our culture to participate in that. That was what was said, and it wasn't. What else was said? It wasn't part of our culture, and it wasn't biblical. But then I thought about, well, we fly on planes. Flying on planes wasn't part of our culture, and it was not biblical.
Right.
So, um, I don't know. What's your take on that being said? Like, are we doing that a lot? We doing that a lot across the board. Um, are we going too extreme, or are we right on point with doing things that way? Be my question.
Yeah. I know. I don't. To be honest with you, I don't think our people really understand. And of course, when I say our people, I'm speaking about a certain portion of the Israelite population. So I don't want this to be a blanket statement, but many of our people we're very inconsistent in you know our understanding of culture, of what I'm saying, of what the law says, what the law doesn't say. And I mean, you hear this all the time. People say, well, if it doesn't say it in the law, then we shouldn't be doing it.
Hmm.
It's like, well, the, the law, there's no law, there's nothing in the Torah that says that you must wipe your butt after you defecate.
Right.
And we spoke about this before. The only thing that the law says is what? That when you have to ease yourself, you go outside the camp, you take your shovel with you. I think the KJV says just spade, whatever. You take your shovel with you, your little mini paddle, spade, or whatever. You go outside the camp, you go dig up a hole, you go drop what you got to drop, in the hole, and then you cover it up behind you, go back into the camp, and of course, there's certain rituals unclean to the even or whatever the case may be. But at no point in that law does it say that you should take a garment and wipe your behind.
Hmm.
Now, if we're gonna stick with that, if we're gonna stick with that motif of the law has to say it before I do it, well then we should all be walking around with crusty underwear. I mean, right?
Oh man, that's funny.
No, I mean that should be a form of righteousness. Who's behind is the more crustiest, and that will show you who's keeping the law. Because if you are wiping your butt, you are doing something that is not in the law.
Hmm.
Now, a person could say, "Well, no, we know we're commanded to." to keep ourselves clean because we're holy. No, you're right. There's plenty of people who wash their body and never wash their butt. Children are notorious for that. You gotta tell children to go in there and you wash on the underarms, you wash your butt, you nasty, whatever the case. So, but you see how ridiculous that sounds? Somebody will say, "What do you mean? Common sense should tell you that." But wait a minute, common sense is not law. Common sense sounds like oral tradition now.
Yeah. Thinking and coming up with different variables outside of what we know what to be. We know this is supposed to be, but now you're trying to be logical, and so you're going outside. Now you're doing with the variables, bringing the variables out. That ain't law, right? The law say what it say. Why are we adding? Why are we putting more to it?
Right. I mean, and now those are just of course, so-called Old Testament examples, whatever. But the New Testament example that I always ask people is, because it's mainly New Testament brothers and sisters, and again, not a shot at them, but let's just keep it 100. Many of them are the ones who push this idea of anti-oral tradition and the traditions of man, and if the law doesn't say this, then you shouldn't be doing it or whatever. Okay, well, in the New Testament, in the book of Acts, it talks about when people are traveling, they are told that, well, they're not told, but there was a statement that it is a Sabbath day journey from point A to point B, wherever they were going. And I remember asking some brothers on Facebook, this might have been 2015, 2016, whatever, what is a Sabbath day journey? And you'd be surprised how many of them can't tell you what that even means. And it's like a Sabbath day journey is roughly half a mile. It's roughly half a mile, according to the Mishnah. According to the Talmud, a Sabbath day journey, you were not allowed to travel a half a mile in any direction from your home, because anything after half a mile, you are now exerting yourself. Because you could take a brisk walk, a little bit, a quarter of a mile, whatever, and you find it all is well. They believe that anything beyond a half a mile, you are now exerting yourself. Now you're breaking a sweat. Now your legs are getting tight, whatever, and now you're not keeping the Shabbat. So they say, stay in your home, stay within your gates on the Shabbat. But if you have to leave your Shabbat, you can go roughly a half a mile in whatever direction. And so the New Testament in the book of Acts understands that. That's why they don't give an explanation to what it says as far as a Sabbath day journey. That was something that the Pharisees instituted and that all the people accepted. My question is there a law in the Torah that says you can only travel a half a mile or a certain amount of cubits, on the Shabbat?
I've never read it. Not to say that it's not there, but I don't believe it is.
It's not there. it's just not. It doesn't exist. There's no text that tells you how far or how little you can travel on the Shabbat, or if you can travel at all.
Right.
So my question is why are the characters in the New Testament observing a tradition that came from the very people that they said were evil? Pharisees instituted this practice, and they are following it with no question. The New Testament doesn't even question the practice.
Yeah, never said nothing against it either.
Right, nothing is said about it. No one says, as the Jews believe, a Sabbath day journey. No, they just say it was a Sabbath day journey. So why are the individuals in the New Testament practicing something that can't be found in the Torah? Or more specifically, the law. Now, that's an example of an oral tradition, because that practice is a Pharisaic institution. That is something that the Pharisees instituted to stop people from possibly violating the Shabbat. They say, "Hey, listen, this is the amount of distance that you can travel in any direction from your home. So you might want to just get outside on the Shabbat. You might want to just get some fresh air and just enjoy the day, enjoy the scenery, whatever the case may be, without exerting yourself. So they put stipulations that on the Shabbat, you can only go this distance, and your animals can only go this distance, or so on and so forth. Now that's that's something that's not found in the law. So why are we practicing it? But this is what I mean by that we pick and choose when we want to be pro pro oral tradition, and when we don't want to be when we want to be anti oral tradition. But it's very inconsistent how we're doing it.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
I mean, there's some other examples I can give, but
we can still go through them.
No, it's just some of them are
Yeah,
a little on the extreme side, whatever. But yeah, it's just I just don't think that, and even with the issue with the birthday, because that was the whole premise of I guess of the question.
Yeah, what he had brought out, about the birthday.
Right. And it's like this, like people will say, nothing. There's nowhere in the scriptures that deals with birthdays. So it's like, well, actually, there's actually a couple occurrences of birthdays. Now, two of those occurrences are not necessarily the best occurrences. It just so happened that on a particular celebration, some individuals were killed. It happened during the time of Joseph. It happened to John the Baptist, apparently, or whatever. But let's look at it in reverse. If celebrating your birthday, let's say, is wrong. If celebrating your birthday is wrong, then the opposite should be what? The opposite is not celebrating. To look, to celebrate your life. If that is a sin, then here's the question: in the book of Eob, or as they say, Job was blameless throughout the entire narrative.
Yep.
Until he did what? Cursed the day of his birth.
Okay. Shalom, Black Av.
Who's it? Is this on live? Oh,
it's on YouTube, man. On that's Benaya. Shalom. It's on YouTube as well and Facebook.
Somebody's. Okay, I see. Okay, yeah. I don't know who Black Av is, but yeah, no doubt. Shalom, brother.
Part of Yehudi gang.
Oh, all right. Hallelujah. To the Most High goes the glory. But yeah. So if you look at the situation with Job has has done everything by the book, so to speak. In his righteousness, he was confused as to, okay, if I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, why am I going through this madness? Even my damn wife has flipped her wig. What's happening? And he stayed true. He stayed vigilant in what he was supposed to be doing. He was blameless until what? Until he cursed the day of his birth.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at that, now people say, well, it's like, well, the book of Job is the oldest book in the scriptures. Neck and neck with Genesis. It should be a part of maybe Genesis, around Genesis chapter 33, 34, 35, somewhere in there is when the events of the book of Job is occurring. So we're talking about a very ancient testimony. And in the book of Job, we find that it is a curse, that it is something that is not pleasing to the Most High by cursing the day of your birth.
Yeah, that's deep.
So by extension, then what does this imply? So I'm not saying this is a law. I'm saying the implication is that if cursing the day of your birth is wrong in the eyes of the Most High, then wouldn't celebrating or blessing the day of your birth be something pleasing to the Most High? So then the question is this: what is it that we're really fighting against with birthdays? Are we fighting the celebration of one's birth, or are we fighting the traditions that have been attached to that? The birthday cakes with the candles. Now, if we're talking about that, then absolutely, we should not be doing any of that, because that is that is part of the Druid religion.
Right.
With the lighting of the candles and blowing them out to dispel, evil spirits and all that stuff like that. That's some other stuff that we didn't deal with. But if we're talking about acknowledging the day of the day of our birth or whatever, you know what I'm saying, and celebrating that fact, the fact that the Most High allowed you to be brought into this world and to be one of his sons and daughters, to activate his will on this earth. How is that a bad thing? And if people did not deal with birthdays as far as the acknowledging and the celebration of the days of birth, then how do we even have the book of Chronicles?
Right.
You can't have chronology if you don't know when somebody is born.
Okay.
How do you get the ages? Oh, this person lived X amount of years. How do you know? Apparently, they were keeping track of it.
Yep, had to.
And if you're keeping track of it, you know, I mean, what are you doing on these days of birth? You know what I'm saying? Again, I'm not saying that birthday cakes was happening. I'm not saying candles and nobody wasn't throwing confetti in the sky. I'm not saying that. But what is it that we are arguing against? If we're arguing against the acknowledging of the, you know what I'm saying, a day of birth, or are we arguing against the practices that have been attached to birthdays in the time that we're in? We have to be clear as to what we're against here. Because if we're not clear, then we find ourselves we find ourselves getting involved in some other things scripturally that is problematic. Let's look at the new moon. Scripture says the new moon is like a Shabbat. Mm-hmm. Ezekiel says it. I mean, it's, you know what I'm saying? The new moon is what our calendar is based on. Exodus chapter 12. The new moon, that this should be the beginning of months and years for Israel going out of Egypt. So the new moon was very important. But the new moon was also important to other peoples who worship the moon. The Arabs worship the moon. His name was Kubal. All of the Shemitic peoples worshipped the moon. So should we keep the new moon? Should we acknowledge the new moon? Because, or should we reject this? You know what I'm saying, the keeping of the new moon practice because other peoples have attached wicked concepts to it?
It's funny you brought that out. I want to throw something else in there. I was talking to someone today about it, and the question was asked to me about yoga. And the question was like, you know, what are my thoughts on yoga? And I instantly, the person I instantly kind of chuckled. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna tell you why I chuckled a little bit. Because I was like, okay, I know the concept of what, you know, yoga was supposed to be and what the poses are supposed to mean and all that. But at the end of the day, I say you stretching. I said, are you doing these poses or your stretch moves to worship another deity? Mm-hmm. I said, think about it. The same thing that you just said with the cultures, other cultures doing something pertaining to the moon, but ours was for something else. I said the same thing. I said, look, I said, watch this, man. I said that if it's not going against what the Most High had put forth, like I said, I'll give you a perfect example. I said, the Most High told us not to make graven images. That of above, beneath, whatever. Y'all know what it is, whoever's listening, if you know the scripture. But then the Most High told us to make graven images. Those are above, those are below. And when I told them, they was like, well, not to the person I talked to today, but a couple other people I brought this to, they was like, what? I said, they was like, I said, did he? They said, yeah. I said, think about it. I said, let's go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. I said, we don't supposed to mess with divination, do divination or something like that, right? According to the law.
Yep.
But anytime you pray or do something along those lines outside of you praying to a deity, you're invoking a spirit that is a form of divination. So what is the actual message? The actual message is not to do that to another deity. That's simple.
Oh no, well, no. I have to disagree.
Okay.
Because what you just explained is not in the law.
That's right.
But you see but you see how inconsistent, because there will be people who will say, yeah, no doubt, because you got, it's like, well, wait a minute, I don't see anywhere in Deuteronomy where it says thou shalt not performeth the stretching exercise. It's just,
Right. And wait. Chief, forgive me. That's the part I forgot to say. When I was explaining that part, I'm like, look at it. I said, look, we know scientifically that stretching, meditation, it can help with the longevity of life. I said, when you look at the patriarchs, I mean, that's a known fact. We could see that. I said, as long as you just, I mean, I know people, family members that can't raise their arms up because they're not stretching their ligaments and stuff like that. Are they doing it because they think that it's yoga and they're going to be serving somebody else? I said, no, they're not serving. I said, serving someone else. I said, think about it. The patriarchs. I said, the patriarchs, if I'm not mistaken, you had Abraham, you had Yitzchak, you had Yaakov. Out of all of them in their age, Isaac was he was the oldest, not oldest from like older than Abraham, but he lived the longest. And it was a scripture. Remember when he went out to the field after his I think after his aim or Ema died or whatever? It's a word that they use for meditation.
yeah.
That was the only time it was used in the text. If I'm not mistaken, I was like, wait a minute, it's only used one time. And this is just me going inside my head right now. This is just me bringing up the same doctrine. But then I started saying also he lived longer than both of them too.
Mm-hmm.
And I just equated that. This is just something I'm like, okay, was this some type of meditation that is kind of like I don't know. But all I know is I was telling the individual today, I'm like, look, if you're not doing this towards some other deity, giving honor, praise to him, you're just stretching. That's it.
Right.
Stretching.
Right. No. And that's. But again, and this is, I think, why we have to be sometimes we have to be very patient.
Yeah.
Because the more you have these conversations with people, you begin to understand that the people that you're talking to have never heard anything you're saying before.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because remember when and well, I was gonna say it's not a bad thing or good, but many of our people, when we came into this walk, we came into it through camps that emphasized identity and nationality over the culture element. So a person can come in and know that they're being told and taught that they are Israelites, that they're Hebrew Israelites. They're taught this, and they can show you in the scriptures and all that, whatever. But their understanding of being an Israelite begins and ends in the King James Version.
Mm-hmm.
It cannot go any further. So when you start saying things like, well, certain things that our people did in ancient times, like, hey, wait a minute, but that's idolatry, or that, it's like, whoa. What do you mean? And usually you'll hear people when we talk about, like, even, and you said it, even with prayer.
Yeah.
They'll say, so when you see a Muslim prostrating, prostrating on his on his prayer rug, and he's got his thicker beads and he's counting off the 99 attributes of their deity, and they're making salat 5 times a day, you'll hear people say, see, yeah, that, I'm saying, that's, they're praying to idolatry. I wouldn't be making no salat. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Are you against prayer, or are you against who they're praying to? And you have to make people understand that a distinction has to be made.
Mm-hmm.
Why would Israelites have any problem with prostrating on the ground and praying to the Most High? This is what our ancestors did in the scriptures. It says they bowed down with their face to the ground, and what were they doing? Muslims called it salat. That's fine. That's, they're entitled to call it whatever they want to call it. But we know that our ancestors prayed. Not always the same amount of times. There's certain scriptures that show that they prayed 3 times a day, some twice a day.
Mm-hmm.
People prayed prostrating to the ground. Some of them prayed standing up with their hands towards the heavens. Some of them with their head down and their hands up. Different methodologies, but that has nothing to do with idolatry until you introduce into the form something that is not Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh or a higher. Once you introduce something else, then we can start talking about, okay, yeah, that is idolatry because you're aiming it towards something that is not our power.
It's not the Most High power. Come
right.
on.
But anything beyond that, it's a practice. That's all it is. Like there's people who believe that that when Muslims do wudu, which is the ritual bathing, washing of the hands before they make prayer, whatever like that, that they go to the sink, they wash their hands, wash their arms, elbow, whatever like that, wash their face, water up the nose, out the nose to clean the nose out, whatever like. They'll say, yeah, see, all that was done, that was all done for idolatrous purposes. Well, yeah, but are you saying that you should not cleanse yourself before you appear before the Most High?
Right.
So you should just come to the Most High however you want to, just unclean, and you just finished getting up in your wife, and just go before the Most High, just whatever. No, you go. It says you shall be unclean unto even. You should go clean yourself with water, because this is what people did. So the practices, many of the practices are not the problem. It's not the practices. It is what we are dedicating these practices towards. That is the problem. So to the point about so-called yoga. Now, what I will tell people is this: if you're just stretching, and a lot of Israelites, they'll stretch, and they'll say, certain prayers, certain psalms, they'll recite certain psalms while they're doing these stretches and these exercises. Fine, nothing wrong with that. But what I will tell Israelites is, do not recite the yoga, the yoga mantras. Do not recite those things, because that is going to something else.
Now let me jump in. First of all, I want to say shout out to Shaul in the building. Man, today is a little freestyle show. Our other panel members had some take care of some things. We send the prayers to one of them under the weather, I believe. So we're just freestyling right now. But going into what you just said about the if not quoting or saying whatever that is towards the yoga, how they do it when they going out there, here's the thing. Most people are talking about not doing yoga, and they're not even talking about what you just brought out. They know nothing about what you brought out. They just think yoga in general has to do with being against our power, and that's not the case. So I was just sharing. I was like, I said, what else did I say? I said, think about it. It is other cultures that's doing the same thing that we're doing right now, and they're not even keeping the law or serving our power like we are. And what does that tell you? I said it was always neighboring cultures that was doing similar things, just like you brought out with the whole. I think you brought out with the moon,
Yep.
But what the Most High is talking about with a lot of these things that you all are fighting with all these doctrines that you all are creating, in my opinion, is it's not against the Most High. And to be honest with you, that was the first time I heard what you said about the whole the Job thing.
Right.
I'm putting that in my archive, because I didn't think about that. Like, I know he was doing good, everything was right, but as soon as he cursed the day of his birth, that's when it was at him. That's when Most High was at him. And I'm like, wait a minute. When you just said that, I'm like, wow. So if he cursed, if Most High got mad at him for cursing the day of his birth, but we're saying that we don't celebrate our birthday because it wasn't part of the culture or the biblical, as though it's something bad, then why is the Most High doing that to him now when he cursed the day of his birth? Like you just said, he cursed the day of his birth. So what would he do if he was blessing the day of his birth? Most I wouldn't reacted like that. It's interesting stuff. That's simple. That was simple, but like I can understand now. Even though outside of what you said, I already figured it. But by you bringing that out, I'm like, oh, that's deep, and it's so small.
Yeah.
We ain't pay attention to that little thing you brought out. Pause.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. They got this thing going on with the whole Nelly and all that, man. That's another topic. Matter of fact, I might want to talk on that too, man. Like,
but yeah, I mean, no, but see, these are very small nuggets, but this is why we're told, to be circumspect in all things. Why we're told to meditate on this law day and night. We're supposed to be running rampant through our literature. Rampant. There should not be a day that goes by that you haven't bust down some chapter in your literature. Not just the literature that is in the traditional canon, but get up in that so-called apocrypha, get up in that so-called pseudepigrapha, get up in the works of Josephus, get up in the works of Philo, go into the Mishnah, go into all, because all of that, is part of the growth of a people. So when we talk about, again, the celebration of birthdays, the Eob situation, I mean, think about this. You have Israelites who say they don't celebrate birthdays.
Mm-hmm.
It's wicked. But they do, in fact, celebrate birthdays every year. In springtime, you celebrate the birth of the Israelite nation during Pesach.
Facts. Simple.
We celebrate it. There's special food that we eat, because you don't see Israelites eating lamb no other time of the year in the scriptures. Not to say that they didn't, just saying that there's no reference to it, that lamb being bust down except on Pesach. And what does it say? Because we know that there was only one Pesach. And that was the event of us coming out of Egypt. Everything else after it was a what? A memorial.
Okay.
And what is a memorial?
Oh man.
It is a birthday. You are remembering. It is a memorial of a certain event. Pesach was the beginning of the Israelite nation coming out. This is the reason why when you look at Exodus 12, let's pull it up real quick. Let's not dance.
That's right.
That's right. In the book. So right there, Exodus 12 verse 1, and for the for the listeners, we're just going to go right now with the KJV. It says, and the Lord, Exodus 12:1, it says, and the Lord spake unto Moses and to Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this month, so we're talking about the month of Abib, this month, or this moon, shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. What are we learning here? We're learning that whatever the timetable that Israelites were using prior to this moment, the Most High deaded it. Because if this calendar that they're going by was being used, there would have been no need to tell Israel that this would be the beginning of months for you. The Israelites would have already known it. He said, this month shall be the beginning of months and the beginning of the year for you. Whatever method of time keeping that the Israelites were indulged in prior, the Most High has ended it.
Yeah.
Which means that they probably would believe, who knows what their calendar was looking like. They were probably following an Egyptian calendar. But he said, no, dead that, this is your new calendar. And with a new calendar comes what? A new timetable. And with a new timetable comes a new birth record. Israel's existence as a nation is traced to what? Coming out of Egypt. Because it says he called his son out of Egypt. Everything with the Israelite nation starts at the Exodus.
Okay.
This is when we get our Kwadosh days, our set apart days. This is when we get the entire body of law, our Torah constitution, all of these things we get coming out of Egypt on that day. And every year we are commanded to do what? To keep the Pesach as a memorial, so that when your children says, hey, why are we doing this? It is to remind us of what. So what are you doing? You are celebrating the birth of the Israelite nation every year in spring. Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we shouldn't celebrate Passover. And the funny thing about that is that this is something that Christ himself celebrated. He celebrated Passover, so he's acknowledging the birth of the nation of Israel. And then he even took it further and said, hey, do these things now in remembrance of me. Now imagine where that can go.
Oh, you opening a whole can of worms.
But this is what I'm saying, that with our people, with a significant portion of our people who they're just not knowledgeable of the culture of the Israelites. They what they know is they can give you precepts about how we're Israel. They'll take you to Jeremiah chapter 14, and I'm saying, yeah, see, Judah is blackened to the ground. And we're not gonna get into all that. But they can give you all of these texts, all of these precepts about how we are Israel. And it's like, and that's dope, no question. Israelite 101, I'm all for it. But now after you know who you are, now what? How do you live it? How you live it is contingent upon the culture.
Mm-hmm.
You are bones that have no flesh. You don't have the culture involved. You're just a skeleton now walking around. There's no flesh on you.
It's crazy how you bringing this out. I promise you, this has been my conversation for the last week and a half right now. Like culture. We've been speaking about it for years, but it's been heavily spoken about with me for the past week and a half, expounding on how great, how important culture is. Even the post I put up yesterday, which I saw somebody commented again who was on a post yesterday. I didn't even read it because, they're picking apart scripture, which is like most of us do, and not understanding the full context behind it, culture behind it, because it's culture involved. I had told him, I said, you got to think about this. You can have somebody that might be doing a little study on us, but they can never give you the full study when they don't understand, participated in, or observed. And I'm talking about firsthand observation, the culture. It is impossible. Now, granted, might be exception to the rules. There are some extremely very observant people that can dissect and, I get it. But for the most part, I'm not talking about those people that's on that top caliber. That's balanced and focused.
Right.
So, I don't know, man. It's one of those things to where it's like, I think you bring it out the most when you say we need gatekeepers. I think you bring out you pick on gatekeepers. We need gatekeepers that can really set the tone. This free nilly one for all is really messing us up. And like I said today, what was said to me was like, you really made me realize that how hard I was being on my people. And I said, you know what? I said it's growth. Basically, you're going in a certain pattern to where you're growing at the same pace as a lot of people. But here's the main point I want to bring out to you is what I said. The problem is you have those that are what we call individualites. So it's a difference between individualites and then it's a difference between someone that is accepting leadership and coming under that tutelage. Like when you think of Joshua and Moshe, I always say this. When you think about Samuel, Shemuel, and Eli, I believe it was. So you have the group that don't have the leadership or don't have someone that they're under and learning from and mimicking and growing with and walking with. But then you have those that are the Joshua with the Moshe, the Isha with Elijah, the Samuel with Eli. Both of these two different groups, they're having a growing or a certain pattern or a certain growth. What's the word I'm looking for? durational period of growth.
Okay.
But here's the thing: when you don't have that leadership doing it the proper way, then you have this group over here that's just free for all, and just causing more patterns of falling and destruction, as to creating more doctrine that's not understood. But that's their growing part. That's their growing period. But over here, you have this leadership that's not going to allow them to fall.
Right.
They're going to be there and be able to beat them to the punch before they can do what this group did.
Yeah.
Now, if they didn't have, just like they don't have, they both will have that same growing durational period, is what I was saying.
Right.
Of course, I worded it better earlier.
Right.
Right now, I don't know why I'm all over the place. But my point is, it's better when you have that leadership, especially righteous leadership, especially leadership that has accountability themselves,
right?
A certain reverence of the accountability that they might have that's over them, and if the accountability that they did have isn't there no more, they still reverence the idea that was given to them and passed down to them. So they're going to make sure that they operate. So my whole point when I was talking to them was this: right now, the reason that you was harsh on a lot of individuals is simply because those that were teaching you or you were learning from the visualites.
Yeah.
And then I had told them, I'm like, it is exceptions to the rules. There is leadership within certain organizations that, might be your Jeremiah or your Yahoo 23. Is it 23? This is Jeremiah 23 with the prophets, right? I think it is. Let's talking about let's go to it. That's how I do it. I don't want to steer nobody wrong.
Read the book.
But I'm pretty sure it's Jeremiah 23. It's a very popular scripture.
We thought, woe be unto the pastors.
There you go. So,
okay.
Yeah, you're going to have leadership that could just steer, but most of the people that's on that's having our train of mind, not our, but your train of mind, as far as with the camps and all that, is due to those people not really being a part of it. Now, the exceptions of the rules that have been to these camps, but was steady dealing with, either by choice or by coincidence, some wicked people. There's wicked people in every type of organization. That's all.
Yeah, but to be fair,
mm-hmm.
To keep the balance in the communication. This goes back to what I think the last show that we did about how we are very opportunistic when it comes to disrespect.
Yeah.
To critiquing. We're not consistent. So when you think about when people who like, being that we're going in this direction anyway, when you think about people who defect from camps, when they say, oh, I'm not involved in no camp because, oh, this elder, he was wicked, oh, he was teaching some doctrine that it just wasn't biblical, and I just didn't want to, and they depart. Again, we got to investigate, well, what's the background to why to why they're doing all of this defecting, and you begin to understand that that when people begin to defect from camps, their first thing is they're trying to say, well, this individual taught this and this was wrong, whatever, like that. And you speak to them and you're like, well, okay, well, yeah, all right, that doctrine might be questionable. Okay, what else? Well, yeah, he was arrogant about it. Okay, I mean, yeah, you call it arrogance. He was defending what he taught, what he believed. I mean, doesn't everybody do that? Everybody defends what they believe. If you don't defend it, then you don't believe it. So it doesn't make sense. But what else? And when you begin to press people further about what specifically they have a problem with in this particular camp, you begin to see that they really don't have a whole lot to go off of. They don't really have a whole lot where they can say, this is the reason, this is the reason, this is the reason, this is the reason. And why is that the case? because we don't do this in the real world.
Yep.
In the outside world. When you send your children to school, you send your children to public school with the knowledge that much of what they're teaching in these classrooms is off. They're teaching your children about damn Independence Day. They're teaching them about Christmas. They're teaching them about the damn Easter Bunny. They're teaching them about a whole bunch of things that you know is off and wrong and detrimental to your child or your children. You know this. But what do we always say? We say, well, that is what it is. Still send them to school just to get that, just to go ahead and just get the education, whatever like that, so that they can move forward in life. Just go ahead and get the GED or go get your high school diploma. And we're quick to say what? Forget that other stuff. We ain't got to worry about that. Just go in and get what you need so that you can move forward.
Mm-hmm.
When we go to college, it's the same thing. You go to a damn college and this stuff in there, you're like, yo, what the hell? Like, but what do? You got to do what you got to do to get that degree. To hell with that, whatever. Who cares what he's teaching about that? Just go in and go get the degree. See, we're very quick to, to indulge and accept the, the false elements of secular education, all in the name of being able to, like, hey, I'm accepting this because the ultimate goal is to get this degree, to go get this information, so I can graduate. So you'll tolerate all of that, but they don't have that same approach when it comes to an Israelite camp. One mistake or one doctrine that they don't agree with in the camp, and what do? Do they say, well, okay, I don't agree with that, but let me just keep going because I want to get, because the rest of what he's offering is beneficial for me. It's going to get me to the next stage in my growth and development. We don't do that. The first thing we do is, I disagree with this. You're an evil ass pastor. Most High, is not with you. I'm out. But why don't we do that to the white man? Why don't we do that to Esau in his institutions? We give him every opportunity. We let a lot of stuff slide in those institutions. When you're at a job and you don't like the job, you can't stand the supervisor. But what do? You tolerate it because you have to pay your bills.
Yeah.
You say, you know what? Whatever. I'm gonna ignore him. I'm gonna do what I gotta do because I gotta pay my bills. I gotta take this money and go create my own business, whatever. You don't quit the job because of some inconvenient element. You be like, oh no, you keep it pushing. But we don't do that amongst ourselves because again, it goes back to, what do we value? We don't value each other. We only value what the outsiders have to offer. So when you hear people say that, the anti-camp this and anti-camp that, and you start pressing them and probing them for their reasons for being that, you begin to realize that, it was some insignificant, well, let me not say insignificant, but it's probably some one single doctrine that they didn't like. A lot of these women, they'll leave. Listen, I've known women who have left Israelite camps, that have walked away from a camp because of wearing pants. They're like, oh, I can't wear pants. Oh, I can't wear a miniskirt. I'm out. Like, wow, that was your breaking point? Because the elder said half your damn buttocks is hanging out from behind, under your damn skirt.
But let it be the job, and the job tell you not to do something, you're gonna stay there. You're gonna change it up.
Right, exactly. You're going to be, you are going to be in compliance.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. But again, it has a lot. It just goes back into that lack of respect that we have for our people. We many of us really don't respect each other, and I mean literally. Because for all that talk about Esau is the damn white man and the white man is the goddamn devil that the Bible speaks of, we give him a lot of leeway to do what he does.
Yeah.
And we justify it by saying, hey, we gotta, you just gotta do what you gotta do, spook the sap by the door, you just gotta, play a position until you're able to. But we don't do that with each other. One mistake by an Israelite, one mistake in doctrine, just one. Next thing you know, you're out of grace. I think I told you this before, a situation where some years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I'm not going to put the person's name out there, or whatever like that, because I don't want to open up old wounds with the situation with them. But there was a point in time when I was teaching a group of people, and on Facebook, and in the video teachings, we would go into certain things, and this person, every opportunity they got, they'd be like, yeah, Chief, I got so much respect for for what you're teaching and what you're doing. You're an asset to the community, and so on and so forth. I mean, all of that, and I'm like, at that point, I'm like, all right, listen, to y'all goes the glory. I'm good. I don't really need all the extra, accolades and all that stuff, whatever. But then one day, I said something that was right there in the text. It was scriptural, but it did not gel with that person. They didn't like what I said. And instead of just saying, hey, well, I don't, can we go further into that? Because I'm not sure if I agree with whatever. Rather than that, they don't say anything. They go on Facebook, on the timeline, and they write a post referring to me. They don't mention me by name, but everyone who saw the post knew the person was talking to me. It was like, yeah, I got to separate myself from these so-called mores. I'm like, now I'm a so-called more?
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, it soured, what I'm saying? It soured me. I was very, what I'm saying? I was very like wow. And it made me understand some more things about people and how people, whatever, is that you are, what I'm saying? You will be the greatest chief man or the chief more. You'll be the greatest ever until they don't agree with you. And then when they don't agree with you, now you are the goddamn devil.
Yeah, see that often, even outside of it.
Right. So it's, but all of this comes from, again, many of them coming out of the schools of thought that they were involved in prior. You know what I'm saying? They brought all of their baggage. They brought the baggage with them. They didn't really change they didn't really change their character. What they did was they wrapped turbans around it. They put fringes on it. But it's still them from previously. And you can see how people, so all you have to do is say one thing that they don't agree with, and all of those previous accolades, all of the, oh, the Most High sent you and you're this, whatever like that, now you're the devil.
Make you think of Ezekiel. Is that Ezekiel? When it talks, it might not be Ezekiel, but it might be when it talks about all your righteousness is gone if you commit one sin.
Yeah. Ezekiel 18.
If you go into,
Right,
into wickedness after that, all your
right.
righteousness is gone.
It's like just that quick. Like, you sing the praise, and all of a sudden, oh yeah. I was like, wow, so-called Maury. I was like, so-called? Like, wow. And it, I mean, now I can laugh about it because it's whatever. It's not that big of a deal to me anymore. But at the time, I looked at it like, really? Like, I'm putting in 3, 4 hours, 3, 4, 5, sometimes 5 hours, like 4 or 5 days a week with these individuals.
Yeah.
No compensation for it, even though a certain brother, I'm not going to put him out there, but a certain brother was telling me that, yo, you should charge. You know what I'm saying? They're taking a lot of time out of your day, daily. But I'm doing it because, well, no, this is what we're supposed to do. Just go ahead and do it. But then, like I said, I realized, again, it's that issue of not appreciating, people not appreciating what you bring to the table, because for all intent and purposes, we don't appreciate each other. And it goes back to the self-hatred that our people have had for ourselves and for each other since the advent of slavery.
Yeah, it's 2022. I say that all the time, but at the end of the day, I got to realize that it don't matter what year it is. Mm-hmm. All the stuff that took place in slavery, it's going to take the people. But then I also realized, like, when I That's why I love the ancient Near Eastern, what they say, or the ancient, or the Eastern culture literature, because
Mhm.
it was just real, honest, and it just like knew that this was the common, well, this was the not character. I'm just gonna say like the character of people in general across the board. Like this is gonna be a forever thing. Like it's always been in any culture that I've studied, any group of people I've seen. It's always a remnant that's really doing it, or a
Right.
remnant of a remnant that's really doing it. So it's like even with the whole slavery thing that took place with us, yes, that's true. But then when you just like look at the whole scope of history before that, even to
Mhm.
this day and now, this is just like how we are. From what I
Yeah.
can see, it's like, man, I don't know.
No, right. I mean, it's again, history doesn't repeat itself. People
He is.
repeat the circumstances that create history.
Mm,
So a lot of times we'll say, "Oh, the times and stuff." Like, no, time is just the passage of lineal events. That's all time really is. That's the definition of time: the passage of lineal events. So it's not time. We are not learning these lessons. You don't learn these lessons. You simply repeat what you know. You repeat it without even thinking about it. We always talk about that well-known um, that the well-known the Pavlovian dog, where they ran these tests on these dogs and showing that if you introduce certain stimuli that corresponds with a certain event, and in the case of the dog, when you're about to feed the dog, right before you give him the food, you ring a bell, and the dog starts to eat. But what did the dog do? The dog equates the sound of the bell with eating. And you do it over and over and over. And eventually, what Dr. Pavlov did, he removed the bell, he removed the tuning fork, all of these other stimuli, whatever like that, and then would just feed the animal. And then he would reverse it, where they wouldn't give the dog the food, but would just simply ring the bell. And as soon as he ring the bell, the dog runs over and starts salivating. The dog doesn't even see the food, but the sound makes the dog operate as if he's going to get food. This is what pretty much proved. It proved to other social scientists and psychologists that the same process can work with humans. That you can continue to repeat certain events, and you do it so often that even when the circumstances that created that caused you to do these things, you remove the circumstances, you're still going to act it out.
yeah.
So you live a certain life. So it's like a person who lives a certain lifestyle in the hood. They hustling, they doing all manner of evil in the hood. And they're like, yo, I do what I gotta do because we in the hood. Okay. But then what happens when that person gets money? You take them out of the hood, you put them in an 8 or 9 room mansion, give him all the cars he needs, all the chains, all the things that that person would need. And what do these individuals do? They still find a way to be niggery. They still find a way to do the things that they were doing in the hood, but then they're not in the hood anymore, so they shouldn't even be doing it. But they're now like the Pavlovian dog. They've done it so often that even when you remove them from the events that's causing them to act that way, they still have to act it out.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And this is what we're dealing with our people, especially those of the HI paradigm, that what we've been taught in our youth and have practiced over and over in our youth is so ingrained in us that even when we know that what we're doing is not right and exact, we do it out of comfort now because, well, it's the most comfortable thing to do because it's the most, what I'm saying, it's the most familiar thing that I can do. We always talked about this in the other platforms about self-sabotage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, good discussion. I'm gonna say we close it out. It's been a little hour. Hopefully people, we still came on to do something for you all. Hopefully it was some things that were said. Did you have anything you want to close out with, Chief?
Oh no, we just getting it in. This was a good, it was a good building session.
Just
Of course, it was spur of the moment, due to circumstances, but to Yah goes the glory.
All praises. Well, shalom to you all. We're about to head out. We just came on here to do a little freestyle. We will be resume next Yom Hamishi Thursday, and resume YAHConscienceRadio, which will. Shalom, shalom. You came in right when we were ending.
Who's that?
Curtis Montgomery.
Okay, shalom, fam. I appreciate this. I'm not familiar with that. Well, they might have a different name on
Facebook.
Facebook, yeah. But in any event, shalom, shalom, and we close out with the blessing that that we were instructed in the scriptures. Yebareka Yah, Yebareka Yah, Yishmareka. May the Most High bless you and guard all of us, all of Israel.
Hallelujah. Shalom, shalom, mishpacha.
Shalom, shalom.